On September 25, 1967, as the Nigerian Civil War raged, Nnamdi Kanu was born into the royal family of Ajioma Aferoku in Umuahia. His father, His Royal Majesty is Israel Kanu, and mother, Ugo Sali Kanu, raised him with the consciousness of his heritage and the weight of leadership as their firstborn son. Growing up in the palace, Nnamdi was the eldest of 5 siblings, including Emmanuel, Kingsley, Fineboy, and Chinua. His early years were shaped by the stories of the Biafran struggle, which permeated the atmosphere of his childhood and planted the seeds of the activism that would define his later years. Nnamdi's formal education began at Library Avenue Primary School in Umuahia, where he was known for his sharp intellect and inquisitive nature. He moved on to the prestigious Government College in Umuahia for his secondary education, an institution renowned for producing some of Nigeria's most brilliant minds and literary giants. His academic journey continued at the University of Nigeria, Nsukka. It was during these university years that his political consciousness began to sharpen, though he would ultimately leave the institution before graduation to seek a different path across the Atlantic. In the late 1990s, Nnamdi Kanu departed Nigeria for the United Kingdom. This move was a turning point, as the diaspora experience allowed him to view the political landscape of his homeland from a global perspective. He settled in London, where he continued his studies and began to network with other Igbos in exile. While in Britain, he worked various jobs to sustain himself, but his mind was constantly fixed on the perceived marginalization of his people back home. He began to realize that the airwaves could be a more powerful tool than traditional protest, setting the stage for his future media activities. Kanu initially joined the movement for the actualization of the sovereign state of Biafra, MASOB, led by Ralph Iwozorowike. However, he soon felt the movement lacked the necessary reach and international strategy, leading to a philosophical rift between him and the older leadership. Driven by a vision of a more modern and vocal movement, he revived Radio Biafra in London around 2009. From a small studio, his voice began to travel across the world via the internet and shortwave radio, capturing the attention of millions and contributing to the birth of the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB. As the popularity of Radio Biafra soared, Kanu surrounded himself with a dedicated team to manage the growing organization. He appointed Uche Mefa as his deputy director, who became his closest confidant and second-in-command during the early years of the struggle. Other key officials emerged, such as Chika Edoziam, who led the Directorate of State, and Emma Powerful, who became the face of the movement's communications. Together, they built a global network of zones and commands that turned IPOB into a highly organized and disciplined entity. Amidst the intensity of his political life, Nnamdi Kanu found a partner in Uchechi Kanu. Their relationship was built on a shared belief in the cause, and they eventually performed their traditional marriage rites in accordance with Igbo customs, solidifying their bond before his return to Nigeria. The marriage was more than a personal union. Uchechi became a pillar of strength for the movement. Even as Nnamdi's rhetoric became more confrontational, she remained his most loyal supporter, eventually becoming a prominent voice for his release during his various incarcerations. In October 2015, Nnamdi Kanu made the bold decision to return to Nigeria to visit his family and assess the movement on the ground. However, the Nigerian government had been monitoring his broadcast, and the Department of State Services was waiting for him. On October 14, 2015, security agents stormed a hotel in Lagos where he was staying and took him into custody. This arrest acted as a catalyst, sparking massive protest across the southeast and south-south regions of Nigeria. As his supporters demanded his immediate and unconditional release, Kanu was transferred to Kuje prison in Abuja, where he faced charges of treasonable felony and managing an unlawful society. During this time, he became a symbol of resistance, with his followers referring to him as Ohamedike, the hero known by all. It was during this period of imprisonment that his first child, Nnamdi Kanu Jr., was born in 2016. The fact that he was behind bars while his wife gave birth in the UK added a deeply emotional layer to his struggle, further endearing him to his followers, who saw his absence from his family as a personal sacrifice. Before his rise to fame, there had been tension between Nnamdi and his father, Israel Kanu. The king, as a traditional ruler, was initially concerned that his son's radical broadcast would bring trouble to their community and the royal throne. If you have followed us so far, subscribe and like the video in order to support us. In a moment of reconciliation, Nnamdi humbled himself before his father, explaining the depth of the grievances he was fighting against. He sought his father's understanding and blessing, which the ease eventually gave, transitioning from a worried parent to a staunch defender of his son's mission. On April 28, 2017, after nearly 2 years in detention, Justice Binta Nyoko granted Kanu bail on health grounds under very strict conditions. The bail required high-profile figures to stand as his sureties to ensure he would return for trial. Senator Enine Abaraib, Jewish High Priest Emmanuel Shalom Okabimo, and Alhaji Tochukwu Uchendu stepped forward. Their intervention was seen as a major victory for IPOB, and Kanu was finally able to walk out of prison and return to his home in Aforokwu. Upon his return, Kanu's home became a pilgrimage site for thousands of supporters. People from all over the world flocked to Umuahia to catch a glimpse of the man they considered their leader, often chanting, Biafra or death. During these months, Kanu ignored several of his bail conditions, including a ban on granting interviews or appearing in large crowds. He continued to advocate for a referendum, asserting that the will of the people was higher than the laws of the Nigerian state. The Nigerian government launched Operation Python Dance 2 in the southeast in September 2017. Many IPOB members viewed this development as a direct attempt to silence their leader and dismantle the movement. The atmosphere in Umuahia became tense as military hardware rolled through the streets. Checkpoints were established, and the road leading to the Kanu family compound became a flashpoint for clashes between the army and IPOB volunteers. On September 14, 2017, the tension reached a breaking point when the Nigerian army invaded the Aforokwu compound. Witnesses reported heavy gunfire and the use of armored vehicles as the military breached the palace walls. The aftermath was devastating, with several reported deaths and the palace riddled with bullet holes. In the chaos, Nnamdi Kanu disappeared, leaving both the government and his followers confused about his whereabouts. For over a year, Nnamdi Kanu's location remained a mystery. Rumors circulated that he had been killed or was being held in a secret facility. His legal team, led by Ifeanyi Ejiofor, filed suits demanding that the army produce him. During this period, IPOB was designated as a terrorist organization only in Nigeria, a decision that generated significant controversy. Despite the absence of their leader, Radio Biafra broadcasts continued, keeping the movement alive. The mystery ended in October 2018 when a live video surfaced showing Nnamdi Kanu praying at the Western Wall in Jerusalem. Dressed in white Jewish prayer robes, his appearance confirmed that he had survived the invasion and escaped. Shortly afterward, he resumed his broadcast, explaining that he had escaped through what he described as divine intervention. He then returned to the United Kingdom, where he operated more freely and continued international lobbying for a referendum. Tragedy struck in 2019 when his mother, Ugo Sally Kanu, died in Germany in August, followed by his father in December. The family maintained that the trauma of the 2017 invasion contributed to their deaths. In February 2020, they were buried in Aforokwu in a massive funeral heavily secured by law enforcement. Although Nnamdi did not attend due to the risk of arrest, the event became a rallying point for his supporters. In June 2021, news broke that Nnamdi Kanu was again in Nigerian custody. It was revealed that he had been intercepted in Kenya while traveling and detained at an undisclosed location for several days, where he allegedly suffered ill treatment. On June 27, 2021, he was forcibly returned to Nigeria without a formal extradition process, a move his legal team described as extraordinary rendition and a violation of international law. Kanu's defense team included high-profile lawyers such as Ifeanyi Ejiofor, Aloy Ejimeka, and Mike Oskom. They argued that because he was illegally brought from Kenya, the Nigerian courts lacked jurisdiction to try him. They fought his case through various courts and secured a significant victory at the Court of Appeal in 2022, though the government continued to detain him pending further appeals. Throughout his court appearances, Kanu remained defiant. He often addressed the court passionately and appeared in his well-known designer tracksuit, which became symbolic among his followers. He frequently challenged the court, demanding to be shown the law under which he was being tried and insisting he was a victim of political persecution. As of today, Nnamdi Kanu remains in the custody of the Department of State Services in Abuja, and he has been sentenced to life in prison after a federal high court convicted him on multiple terrorism-related charges. Despite the personal losses he has endured, including the deaths of both his parents, prolonged separation from his wife and children, and significant health challenges, Kanu maintains that his spirit is unbroken. Many of his supporters continue to view him as a symbol of their struggle. The court found him guilty of offenses including inciting violence, belonging to a proscribed organization, and threatening attacks, rulings that have made his life sentence one of the most talked about legal and political developments in Nigeria in recent years. Since the sentencing, plans for appeals and further legal challenges have followed. However, the substantive appeal against his conviction and life sentence has not yet commenced, and his legal team is still making preparations and filings as they await the formal start of the appeal process. At the same time, prominent political figures and regional leaders have called for a political solution to the crisis surrounding his detention and sentencing. Some leaders have urged dialogue and negotiation between the federal government and stakeholders from the southeast to address the underlying tensions. Efforts have also been made at the national leadership level, with visits and discussions aimed at exploring paths toward reconciliation or intervention. Kanu is currently serving his life sentence, and while his conviction stands, the debate over political dialogue, pending appeals, and broader resolution of the conflict continues among supporters, critics, and political actors across Nigeria. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe.